is what we would wish for. And we are working very hard on that. Of course, sitting around the table, complementary pathways, getting refugees to work, getting them to have access and inclusion into the national systems is all integrating their social cohesion and peaceful coexistence is one of them. I will quickly move on this because they are talking to me about time. What is UNHCR doing in discussing and helping with refugee issues in Africa? We have an office in Addis Ababa that works closely with the AU. It's called the Regional Office for the AU and the ECA, the Economic Office of the Economic Commission on Africa, where we are involved fully with all the policy sectors of the African Union. The representative is there, and he sits on all these different fora, different discussions to see what Africa is doing to deal with the situation of conflict, civil strife that is taking place in Africa. And our High Commissioner is also very engaged. We have several, we have consultants, staff members who have been, who are dealing with IGAD. We have staff members who are dealing with, like our regional officers deal with SADC. We have the office in Addis Ababa, no, in Kenya deals with the ECA. And in the West, we have the ECOWAS. So we are very involved in trying to see how to deal with issues of conflict resolution and engagement. Thank you.
Minutes ago, we had Dr. Lauren Landau over there, and I wanted to say to him that you gave him a shout out, but we just received a WhatsApp message from him to say somewhere he's in the UK, in the UK at the moment. Guess what? They also have load shedding. Message to say nothing is working at home. Rushing to the office, doesn't know whether he's going to make it. So we can take a breather. I think we gained 15 minutes here, so we're not so far behind. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for your answers and for those questions. I don't think we have time to take any more questions, but I do want to, just from my side, perhaps give you a little bit more information of pledges. In the Southern African region, legal partners like ourselves have come together with various legal rights and the Legal Resources Center in South Africa, but also advocates such as individuals such as Advocate David Simmons and a number of groups, NGOs working in the entire region. And we have formed a body called SALAM. Somebody must help me with what SALAM stands for. I think Anna, you'll be the one. The Southern African Legal Advocacy something and migration.
Wow.
But we've all pledged to provide legal education on refugee law to whoever is available. And so in that regard, we've already trained judges from here. We said just Southern Africa, but we've trained them from here to Timbuktu, right? So we've trained a number of judges. We do a lot of training with a number of people, not just judges and lawyers, but also social workers and the police and any other NGO, etc., etc. So you can name us. You can name us.
Salam should go to Geneva.
Yes, Salam has been invited to go to Geneva, but we have been working very closely with UNHCR colleagues, Kate Ortega and Sarah Jane Savage on this. So a lot of work has been done. We are familiar with the pledges. We've done some work on these pledges. We are also in South Africa. It may sound like it's difficult, but if we're talking about complementary pathways and we say 3 South African students have managed to go here and we're doing that for them. As practitioners, we recognize that one refugee at a time. We don't disregard that at all. So you would be very familiar with the fact that we do assist in our legal practice, that we assist refugees with applying for permanent residence. Of course, the big step is firstly certification. Having to prove that you are going to remain a refugee indefinitely. Can you imagine a clause such as that in your legislation? But that's what we have. So it requires intense application of a legal mind to say that this is a person who will remain. But we have been really successful. In a year, we would do about 250 such applications. But now you've cut off funding and we can't do any. I get that all the time. And cheeky me saying that after that, but it's not there to you, right? This is happening, but that's not a bad note to end on, right? Just to say that there are pathways to protection in South Africa. There are clearly durable solutions that are available to people, and it requires dedicated work from ourselves and from the UNHCR. And I want to thank you, Madam Ikoko, for coming in today and for doing this with us. I believe this is going to be one of many that's going to happen. Today we've had complimentary conference. I believe in 2-3 months' time we can come up with another topic, and maybe we can ask refugees themselves to suggest the topic for us. That would be a far more interesting. But can everybody please help me in thanking for that? Please come back at 11:40.
Actually, I mean, the best plan, but that's to you. Yeah.
I was planning to listen and then check the program again. I was just okay.
Yeah.
What I'm not saying, I make a YouTube because I just want to film now.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. I kind of
Yeah. I can't say it's very different. I guess it's news. Yeah.
What it means, thank you.
When I was younger, I was supposed to be yeah.
We've had things all of the, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. Yes. One of the bad. She was. I also
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
I think so like if I just sit down and please.
I suppose I'm up next, should I?
If you want to, you can definitely move, or we can help you move, and also like I mean, do you want tea, coffee?
I guess I can coffee. Yeah.
I'll give you a plate and well. No, no.
Go for it, go for it.
Yeah.
I'm going to do something.
You came to US to meet you.
Yes, I've actually asked that, but I. I'm also, I'm curious, because unfortunately that's being a bit, I don't know, a lot of people are trying to find other remedies. Oh, yeah.
Maybe something with homes, you may not just, but no, something.
I mean, I've asked a couple that I work with that I don't know, but I can find no one had, but oh, good. And those working, it's just about.
Sorry, I just put on the radio, my club, it's actually the
You said you like yeah. I was wondering. Yeah.
If you have good one.
Yeah, I always told you about it.
It is actually not the game there on it.
I know, maybe.
Like,
I'm still gonna find the mic to get it, like, leave it. And I was like, just supposed to know.
I know you read the Excel, but but so I had a course to read this one, half an hour kind of like,
Yes.
Or like,
25 minutes, which is her talking about how she wants to spend the day and a very detailed plan to stab people in the office. So she gets suspended. It was very detailed. So 25 minutes of like, yeah, they're gonna try and do this, and I was the person who does voices of the different people. And like, so I'm just saying like, you know, we are dealing with.
Oh, so she's just a miserable person.
She's not a person.
Okay.
Sounds.
I must say, every time I get emails, I laugh because it's always in her funny 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then systematically, so she shows me her email, and it's like, 1, we don't have it written, 2, we have no reason.
Yeah, but I.
Fine.
What, thank you, and I'm sorry to really admit you.
No, no, no,
We're about, we're
no.
about.
There's another individual as well.
Thanks. Thanks.
No one I can make for myself. Okay. Part of it.
She didn't put it away.
No, oh, yeah. But if someone even with you is there, like, she did, I mean,
Who was the other person you got?
yeah, there is no.
Speaking of, some interesting project.
They would do that themselves.
That her co-worker has to go out on extension without paying permission for time. It was a very detailed plan. You just essentially. It's not like.
On our medical.
Oh, yeah.
What you got is that? Emil.
That's something I know.
Yeah, they know I haven't to him.
And yeah, that's the conversation started, is there's a woman who has been on medical leave, which is made. It's shocking, although I do question what the situation is. And no interaction, like the person ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah. The failed, that also makes try and. Yeah. There's an issue, I know all you white people have other tons, so you have to get up. I don't have one children dying. Okay. I know you white people. I know you all got one. I
can imagine no one in her office likes her because it was just sad. So sweet, the section B is she's so good. Yeah, so far, I mean, again, anyone I have before is in urban, and we've been the issue. Can't really fault her. No, but the two of them, the new market, are part of the state and was, yeah. I know, and I see it
Almost Tuesday. My students later that we can listen to exactly, you recognize, I didn't realize, really, when I was in 2021. Want to know the name of the voice, yeah, okay, now, some point, but yeah, like that, yeah. Thank you so much.
Should I move some?
A clear city makes space for you and suggest you could have you and more than 30 hours.
I'm sad I can't give Lauren, but I, it is. So, yeah.
No, when you take this away from us, the chain next to you. So how will they do it? Nothing about what we like so. I don't know, like large
Like really back in it.
Okay, so we may just be lucky and get him on.
And I gave them my cell phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're saying how. So I think.
I'm very happy. Do you know that you are?
It's pretty comfortable here, and then you can see that it's only a message filter. But like.
Then it's kind of uniform, or I'm just I don't mind, so.
Stand up, this is stand up. If you want to try. Yeah. Sure, doesn't have to be like.
I sit.
It's vertical, it can be still a single moment, but not. Yeah.
All weeks I've got that. The doctor gets very speech about how, for the first 2 years, I said about having. But it's actually not that many, let's say, very. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful presentation.
It was, you know, I don't understand what I was saying.
Well, this, but this, still doesn't have one vision. It's very, because it doesn't have to that. You deep in, I think.
Presentation.
Yes, it has more, yeah. I think that. Maybe,
I mean, it's just nice to hear that, I think.
I don't know again, as soon as you're done.
I like to remember.
I will stand there.
But let's get back to the conversation. What happens when we.
I went to do an obstacle course that was meant for younger. People in better shape. Yeah.
I think so. And they were doing, what do you call it, a race, so that.
Yeah.
It doesn't be especially new.
Yeah.
And we can do this for years.
So in that sense, exactly. But again. Like, all people now, okay, I mean, let's do that. I actually give or. I don't know, but I'm just gonna say, I think I was. Yeah, that was really good. I really like the way she, I did them like. Operational and in perspective. Because I think. No. Okay, so, I actually should. Yes, more about. That's not the. Like this.
Yeah.
We can say. It's not to be conventional. Our constitution,
Yeah, we can always like sit in meetings whenever.
And so, special I mean, reservations. Yes. I agree. But things, I mean. So what is the voting definition? Let's finalize this. Okay. Yeah.
Did I take the seat from?
No, I gave you my seat. I gave you my seat. Lauren Landau, Davidson, Jane Chapman, right? And then we have program. Although we also have more questions.
Mention is Laura.
Yes.
But there was somebody trying to put in, I hope it wasn't Lauren, but there was somebody trying to bring.
Some of us have good knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Let's say out on the borders. Yeah.
I don't understand why you back and forth. He has this back story like.
I understand, I think mainly in the norms.
So like the dynamics holding them together.
Yeah, but we did, but that's me.
He did so make it community. Work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Right. We do. It's one of the mentions.
And he took out this. He took it on, he took it on. He gave it to us, to take it apart.
I've been working in HCR the last year.
Been married. Is there someone called Caroline Van Buren there? Professor Caroline Van Buren?
School of Law.
That's what I mean, yeah.
It's mainly, but some is with the.
Uh,
Maintain, yeah, it brings a bit, I don't know.
Child protection. I mean, she does a lot of child human rights work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, but now you.
No, it was just the name because she was my professor.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I did international law. I had a class there. Queen Mary, yeah, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, yeah.
That's fine.
It is, it is. I'm just wondering if she's still there because I remember her. Okay.
Inside, outside, inside.
Also professor, but he was at UCL, so I had a class at UCL, the class
Yeah.
there. We didn't know it was. Oh, that's quite funny. So then everyone felt that, we didn't realize. They That's the one I did.
Yeah.
No, I did the one on international law. In those days, you could join, you went to one of the universities, so I joined UCL. But they allowed you to do 2 classes at any of the other universities. And because that particular year is wonderful, because in that particular year, the course I wanted to do at UCL was not even, the professor was ill, so they let us do 3 classes anywhere else. One at Queen Mary, one at SERS, one at it's fantastic. So you meet like 800 people, 200.
That is one.
It was wonderful. It was the best year of my life. So today I remember that. And Queen Mary, we had this wonderful in the tutor group. And I still remember all of them. But in those days, we didn't have WhatsApp. You know, I lost track with all of them. Like, such an amazing group, such good friends. Yes, and that's what I mentioned. I remember that because it was the best tutor group that we had. Everyone was so different. System. We used to meet together, study together, just that group, not the others. Yeah. It was really fun. Yeah. Yeah. When you're there as a student, doing your masters, you could have more money. But when you're an undergrad, and it's so different. Compared to existence. I mean, I was a poor undergrad student after working at it. But it's very good. Yeah, Caroline Van Buren, yeah, she became a real leader in child protection. Maybe. Human rights law track is still his name. Her name. Yeah, we've got another colleague in UCR, I think, exactly the same name. Yeah, that's why I remember. Yeah, cool.
6 weeks. A lot. I'm getting 1 week, 6 weeks.
It's a really beautiful thing to watch.
And I guess it's kind of like, what is that?
Actually,
Thank you for later. Good morning. Please and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. We are now going to start the first of many panel discussions that we are going to have over the next 3 days. But this panel discussion is our one and only public panel discussion, and it's going to be on the temporary protection granted to Zimbabweans by the South African government in 2010. But just before we go there, I believe it's a bit of housekeeping. I've just been informed by my colleague that I must do. Lunch will not be served at 12:30. Lunch will be served at 1 o'clock. Lunch will be served in the restaurant that is to your right. My colleagues will lead us to the lunch. But for us to enter the restaurant, we will all need a voucher. Makes sense, right? And my colleague Neil has now. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about foreigners and people thank you. My apologies. Now has the vouchers with him, right? So I think he will station himself at the door here as we leave for lunch, and he will issue. And maybe somebody can share this duty with you. Let's go a little bit quicker.
Okay.
Olivia will share this with you. They will stand at the door and hand out lunch vouchers. Our apologies if that sounds very school-like, right? But it has to happen. And though this is not housekeeping, this is a point. There was an unfinished point from the third session. Madame Ekoko, you expressed great fear at the South African government and the threats to withdraw from the convention and or then sign the reservation. I just want to reassure you because room full of very good lawyers here. And they are not going to get that right because the constitution is supreme in South Africa. There's absolutely no way where we can say freedom of the movement only for some and not others. It doesn't happen. Our constitutional right to freedom of movement extends to every person in this country, whether you have a permit or not a permit, or whether you are Cameroonian or South African. So, do not be afraid. We are very, very proud of the robust democracy that we have. And with the robust democracy, we have litigation, which is our right. And Dr. Matsuri, I was in a 1 hour, 40-minute meeting with him, and he said, that's an issue you can litigate on. I tell you, you can litigate that against us, right? But do not be afraid, right? This is a robust democracy that we live in South Africa. Right, now, let's get on to this panel. I have here with me, sitting in front of you, 2 young men. I still call them young men. Why do I call them young men? Because when I taught them, they were really young men. I have with me on that side, I have Mr. James Chapman, who is currently the project manager at the Scalabrini Center of Cape Town. He is an admitted attorney, and most of you will probably know that Scalabrini is based in Italy. It is an organization that has been involved in migration for more than 100 years, and it is that same ethos of welcoming the migrant and making sure that migrants' rights are met, that they operate in South Africa. So I'm very happy to have at the helm of that organization, Mr. James Chapman, who not only was my student, but also worked with me at the Refugee Rights Clinic for a period of 10 years. So a lot of the direct hands-on legal experience, but also, of course, I have 2 managers. I told the manager in my office, he needs to go somewhere else to be a manager, right? Managers, they can't all just be in my office and just senior attorney, no. We're happy for James to be at Scalabrini. But James is also, even when he was at the University of Cape Town, he was our person in the office that was fully engaged in the membership with the consortium of refugees and migrants in South Africa, the short version of it being CONSA. And I'm happy to point out the director, the current director of CONSA, will join us here today. Thank you very much for joining us. So CONSA has decided to litigate against the government because the government has issued a notice to withdraw his temporary permits for Zimbabweans. But after renewing it 3 times, they have decided to withdraw it. There are currently three cases that have been instituted against the government, and understandably, that's the reason why government is not here with us, right? We did invite them, but understandably, that is the reason why they're not here with us. There are 3 advocates in the room that have taken them on. They are not going to be here. It makes sense. So that is changed, but I also had with me on my with the crutches here, Advocate David Simmons. Advocate David Simmons is an admitted advocate. He's at the Cape Bar in 2006, as long ago as that. He was in my class as a student, but he has actively worked on refugee and migrant cases throughout his practice in 2000, well, not in 2000, little after 2000. Actively worked on refugee cases and migration cases, and he is also one of the advocates in this case. But Advocate Davidson is maybe an advocate now, but it's one of these select few of our law students that have done a stint at the Constitutional Court. I'm right about that, right? And he worked under one of our very prestigious judges, Judge Mokoro, and so we are very happy to have him here with us. David is, of course, over the years, he has kept his connection with the university. He's acted as an external examiner for me on many occasions, so he's well versed in student writing and the passion of students that we've seen here this morning. He is very much aware of that, and he's also written a chapter on expedition in my book, Immigration Law in South Africa. So I'm very happy to have the two of you here today. Our third panelist who is in the UK, unable to join us, but should be, I will introduce him as well. And I'm going to give James the floor. James, can I give you 15 minutes? Right? 15 minutes for James, 15 minutes for David, and thereafter we will have a half an hour for discussion.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Patrick, for those very kind words. Slight correction, it's, I'm not at the helm of Scalabrini, Juliet Treves, the director, is here. But yes, we work together to yeah, no, so basically, I would like to primarily speak to you about the Zimbabwean exemption permits and the role that Scalabrini played in collaboration with partners in responding to the decision to discontinue them. As Fatima mentioned, you know, they were initially introduced in 2010, and then at the end of the year before last, there was a decision to not continue them after sort of 11 years of the provision of Zimbabwean exemption. So what we did initially was we engaged with Zimbabwean exemption permit holders and said, you know, how does this affect you? What are some of the challenges that you're experiencing? And we just kind of tried to develop a strategy to see how we could best respond. And we thought that the best way was to avoid sort of litigation, antagonizing, and seeing whether we could speak to the Department of Home Affairs and through kind of reasoned and thought out discussion, convince the minister perhaps to reconsider and either provide for an extension of Zimbabwean exemption permits or to look at another kind of regime, because I mean, they weren't exactly the same. There was Zimbabwean dispensation permits and Zimbabwean special permits and then Zimbabwean exemption permits. So maybe something that's similar in this space. And so we arranged, we also engaged with a number of civil society organizations as well to see what kind of challenges were coming up. Now, we had a meeting with the minister, and what we were, just to give you a little bit of a better idea of what we were also wanting to address is if we were to discuss and try to convince in terms of reconsideration, we need to look at what were some of the reasons that the minister gave for deciding to discontinue. So in correspondence to every Zimbabwean exemption permit holder, the correspondence was sent out to say basically four particular areas. One is that there were Zimbabwean exemption permits was always a temporary measure. It was for approximately 200,000 people. And there was a huge burden on the asylum system back in 2010 at the institution of the Zimbabwean dispensation. And there's still an enormous burden on the asylum system, exacerbated by huge backlogs in the appeal system. The other reason given was that there's really limited capacity, limited funding for the Department of Home Affairs. And with this insufficient budget, there was insufficient budget to provide for the continuation of Zimbabwean exemption permits. And that priority should be given to processing of documentation for South Africans. That's for South African processes by the Department of Home Affairs. The third reason was that there are very high levels of unemployment. And so the impact that Zimbabwean exemption permits might have in terms of that environment, with sort of 34% unemployment. And then lastly was to say that there were some Zimbabwean exemption permit holders that had violated the conditions of the Zimbabwean exemption permits. There were 1,900, and so that was also part of the decision to just discontinue. We as Scalabrini kind of put together an agenda to have kind of a closed door negotiation, try to kind of resolve the kind of impasse in not agreeing to continue. And we targeted each of the points that he raised, but we also raised a number of kind of other points: the impact of the decision on children, the impact and positive contribution made to the economy of ZDP holders, particularly in response to that unemployment argument, the enormous challenges in pursuing mainstream visas, and that I'm also going to talk to a little bit further, but that was kind of the solution provided by the department, that you have a 12-month grace period, now been extended by a further 6 months, in which you're to migrate off the Zimbabwean exemption permit and onto a mainstream visa. And so, like some of the issues, and I'm not going to be exhaustive, and I really will invite when in the Q&A session people to raise more, but there were big problems with licenses, the traffic department, and renewing or obtaining licenses. People had bonds, banking, and for example, Western Union blocking accounts for Zimbabwean exemption permit holders. I already mentioned the kind of high threshold for obtaining visas that is insurmountable, not only in terms of the high number of conditions and the difficulty in trying to have, in a number of instances, requiring to get a waiver before you apply, but also in terms of time period and only having a sort of 12-month period to obtain those. And then the challenges in terms of visas, in terms of the VSS processes, police clearance, and then also that there wasn't the greatest of communication about the Zimbabwean exemption permits and what effect it had. In fact, initially the decision was made to say that not only are Zimbabwean dispensation permits, Zimbabwean exemption permits not being continued, but people were only receiving services and assisted if they had actually applied for another alternative. And because the requirements are so high, the amount of documents that you need to do to put together to put in such application, that was a threshold that was not possible to meet within a very short space of time before the end of December 2021. Obviously, that was changed to say that the grace period is for people who are on Zimbabwean exemption permits, even if they haven't actually applied for a visa. So we had this meeting with the minister. We had a few agenda points, but particularly looking at what alternatives are available to Zimbabweans. What is there scope for reconsideration of the decision? What's the current situation in Zimbabwe? Because that was also something that was raised in correspondence, because there was a suggestion that the situation is normalized, regularized, much better in Zimbabwe. There isn't a humanitarian crisis from an economical or political perspective in Zimbabwe, and as such, there is no longer a need for the Zimbabwean exemption process. So we put together kind of strong and robust arguments against that. We looked at alternatives, we looked at communication, and in correspondence just before the meeting, the minister said the following with respect to scope for reconsideration. He said, there is no scope. What we have communicated to ZDP holders is there is no scope for reconsideration, as the decision was taken after careful consideration and supported by the national executive cabinet, it is practically impossible to continue the exemption regime. So, despite that having been communicated, we still met with the minister and the director general and others from the department, engaged for in excess of an hour. And unfortunately, as you all know, the minister did not revise or reconsider the decision. And engagement was kind of limited going forward to how can we work with the decision as it stands and look at ways to improve channels for people to migrate into the mainstream system. Thereafter, Scalabrini continued to engage with a number of ZEP holders and other stakeholders. One of the arguments that we also put forward, and I think it's really crucial, is to think about what is the actual impact it's going to have on South Africa and South African society of rescinding or reversing the Zimbabwean exemption permits. Because yes, there are a number of people who are in working in the hospitality industry or domestic workers and the like, and that is a very important and a crucial role. But there are also nurses, there are also social workers, there are also teachers. Now, what happens to South Africa if, 10,000 ZEP holder nurses, 5,000 ZEP holder teachers, 8,000 ZEP holder social workers? These are kind of like the fabric of South African society, really, really key professions, which are not among the list of those that are provided for in terms of critical skills, and therefore mainstream visa avenues are not available to them. But if you remove them from the equation, it's not. I mean, yes, the Zimbabwean exemption permit holders, the migrant community is going to suffer, but the South African community will suffer remarkably from the absence. So as Scalabrini, we looked at trying to continue to communicate. We sent further correspondence to the Minister of Home Affairs. We were approached by Helen Suzman Foundation, which is one of the applicants in the case that Fatima made mention of. We approached council to see whether we could get a legal opinion on the prospects of success of potentially litigating if that was the route that needed to be taken. We also, one of the things that I failed to mention, but I thought was quite important that came out of the discussion with the ministers, he said, you talk about in your reasons the strain on the asylum system, and we're wondering, is it going to be possible for those who had valid genuine asylum claims or asylum claims arose while they were on ZEPs in the case of like surplus cases, to apply for asylum? And his response in that meeting was, we have enormously capacitated the Department of Home Affairs. It is ready and able. We have 26 new judges. We're in a position where we can certainly accommodate asylum applications. Okay. Now, it's difficult because a lot of Zimbabwean exemption permit holders wouldn't actually fall within the definition, because you only should apply for asylum if you're somebody who's fleeing from well-founded fear of persecution or somebody who's fleeing from, as the keynote spoke about a few moments ago, the extended definition, a kind of war, civil disorder kind of environment. What was interesting, though, is that in correspondence subsequent thereto, when we said, well, we appreciate that there will be scope for those who do have asylum claims to approach the asylum system. The minister said, I never said that. You can't approach the asylum system. It wouldn't be correct to approach the asylum system because people don't really have claims to do refugee claims. So there's, it can't be done. And so there's kind of also this kind of movement to and fro in terms of what's scope and what is available. What we concluded, and this is where I will end, is got to do with what next step we decided to take, which was to say, look, we want to continue to engage with the Department of Home Affairs and see how, through advocacy, not on our own, but also in collaboration with partners, we can maybe help to change the mind of the Minister of the Department with respect to this. But also, all the legwork that we did in terms of, as I say, getting a advisory from council, working with pro bono attorneys at Norton Rose Fulbright, was to say maybe the Consortium for Refugees and Migrants South Africa would be well positioned and better positioned to provide for the whole kind of consortium, a whole range of refugee and migrant assistance organizations to join as co-applicants in the case against the minister contesting the Zimbabwean exemption permits. And that's where I'm going to leave it because I'm sure David will take the story further.
Everyone, and thank you very much to James and to Professor Khan. I guess I'll just pick up where you left off. Yes, after the initial shock at the withdrawal of the ZEP, a number of groups actually decided to launch into litigation. First, I think, was African Amnesty, and we actually have Simba Chitando, who is the lead counsel in that case, here today. Then there was the Zimbabwe Immigration Federation. And then COMSA, my client, joined in with the Helen Suzman Foundation to challenge its withdrawal. And I'm going to sort of summarize all these cases together, and all of them broadly seek the main core root, which is a challenge to the decision of the minister to terminate the ZEP. There are some variations over the exact phrasing of the relief, and then some question marks over what happens if we win? Where do we go from there? How do we extend on the ZEP? African Amnesty, for example, I think seeks a declaration that there's a legitimate expectation on the part of ZEP holders to permanent residence in South Africa, whereas COMS has gone for a narrower phrasing of the relief. We're all headed into this one challenge, and we're all being heard together in April. We hoped to be heard at the end of last year, but we weren't, and we've been allocated the next available dates, which are in April. The broad nature of the challenge is firstly procedural. We've said that there was no proper consultation, the necessary component of this kind of administrative action in South African law. I think James put it politely. I think he said it was something like, they didn't really let us know what went on. I've been much stronger language than many other people in the community. And that by itself, we believe, is a sufficient basis to set aside this decision, because yes, maybe some stage, some reason, the ZEP will end. But hearing the voices of the people affected, including the actual holders of the ZEP, and including bodies like Scalabrini, IMSA, UCT, the UCT Clinic, those are important voices to be involved in that process. That's probably our strongest challenge, because courts like procedural challenges. They don't really want to get into saying to government, this is what you must do about immigrants or refugees in general. The next set of challenges all relate to the reasons given by the minister. I think James has touched on those in some detail, claims about what's happening in Zimbabwe, claims about the impact on South Africa. We are challenging pretty much all of those reasons. And some of them have been largely abandoned by the minister. In particular, the claims that ZEP holders are bad for the South African economy have been abandoned by the minister, at least not defended. However, I should note that subsequent to the launch, two new parties have sought to join the fray. The one is the Allied Truckers Forum of South Africa, and the other is Operation Judula. Both of these seek to join as respondents, and both of these take a fairly blunt anti-immigrant stance. So they say they're taking this line of attack more strongly. They're saying we can't let ZEP holders stay. It's bad for us. It's bad for our jobs. And they haven't been granted leave to intervene yet. And one of those cases being argued in a week or so. But if they are successful in being admitted, at least to present their case, it will open up that angle of matters more broadly in litigation. So I'll just say now,
I'm looking for good evidence on economic impact of ZEP holders, immigrants, refugees in South Africa. I know there are many smart people out here. If you perhaps have any good academic evidence, see a few optimistic faces, that's good. Please do reach out to me. Even if I don't use it in this case, there are other cases about the right to work of asylum seekers that I have my eye on and I would like to get. Moving on, the last set of challenges are challenges about what the minister should have taken into account, but didn't. Again, I'm summarizing. But for example, the constitutional rights of children. Some children have been here for their entire lives or most of their entire lives. This is the country that they know. This is the country that put down roots. And in South Africa, under our constitution, children's interests are of paramount importance. So that should have played a role into the assessment. And again, a lot of this goes to this question of, even if the ZEP in its current form should end, and it's a question mark over that, what is the long-term solution? What is the transition? You know, where do people who've been here for a decade, for 13 years, where do they go from here? And what is a human rights-based and a fair and practical approach to these individuals? So those are the challenges. To touch briefly on what Home Affairs says. Home Affairs obviously says everything I've said is nonsense. They say that we are seeking an indefinite right for these persons to remain in South Africa, which is an angle that they take because, I think correctly, they know the judges won't want to grant permanent rights. As I mentioned, judges want to take a more limited procedural approach to that. They say that the decisions that they've made are either not final or not administrative action. James touched on that. There was really, in my view, no ambiguity in what was said to him, but in the court papers, there's a lot more legal fancy language about what was really said, what was really meant. So we'll have to see how that plays out. And then they're challenging us on the facts of, as I mentioned, what's happening in Zimbabwe, what are the practicalities in the ground. So they've taken issue with all of those. The last question that people usually ask me is, of course, whether we are going to win. And I probably wouldn't be leading the case if I didn't think we were. So take that though with a pinch of salt and try and probably lie. But I think the procedural part of our case, at least, is strong. A lot will depend on who the judges we get. We have a 3-judge panel up in Pretoria. And we're set down for 4 days, which is quite a long time for a matter of this nature. But we have, as mentioned, we have a large number of legal teams. Aside from Simba and myself, there's also Stephen Budlander, SC, leading a team for the Helen Suzman Foundation, and Timbeka and Mkatobi, SC, for the Zimbabwe Organization Federation. So we're all going to have, and 2 senior counsel for the Home Affairs as well. I think we are, as I mentioned, likely to succeed. If there are people here who are the holders of ZEPs, I usually offer my usual caution saying that law is uncertain, but I think that we are likely to succeed. However, the long-term future of these individuals is probably not, I'd say, going to be decided in April. And that, of course, is the key question as to whether I would say this ZEP was a success, or whether it can be considered a complementary pathway in replicable form. So far, with the way that it is terminating, I think what's happened has been unshot. I hope that was about the right time period.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
On the aggressors, because and our last 2 years, we are in last 2 years, Zimbabwean refugees and also if there are any ZEP holders in the room. We also got, I didn't point out, we have from the Helen Suzman Foundation, we have the senior researcher at the back there, Mr. Patricia, I believe, also with the alarm. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, lovely. So, of course, from the Helen Suzman Foundation, from Advocate Simba, we would like to hear your voices as well. Please add on to what David and James have said, but let's start with any refugee voice. Are there any Zimbabweans in the room that would like to say something? What has, if you're a ZDP holder, what does this mean? What has the impact been on your life? If you'd like to share with anybody. David.
My name is Juliet. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Cape Town. I am a ZDP holder. I actually became South Africa when I was a minor. I did my high school in South Africa. I went to the bachelor's degree in law in South Africa, in the ZDP. I had been using an ASILE before that. So when the ZDP was introduced, I moved on to the ZDP. So I did my bachelor's degree in South Africa using the ZDP. I moved on to my master's using the ZDP. With a PhD completed using the ZDP. Now I'm on the postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Cape Town. I'm still using the ZDP, and I can't explain just how much this whole fiasco that is happening now with the ZDP, how much it is affecting me mentally and also just my career. I mean, how can I be in a particular country for all those years and I came as a minor, and you can only imagine just my whole adult life until now has been around South Africa. And then I'm expected to pack my bags and leave and go to Zimbabwe. I don't think the problem is Zimbabwe is my home country. But the reality is I know my attachment to Zimbabwe is not as strong as it is as my attachment with South Africa. My whole education has been South African education. For example, at the moment, I'm working with the OECD, writing a report for them on the role of society organizations in advancing corporate governance and accountability in South Africa. This is going to benefit South Africa. But here I am, every time when I have to look at that report, write that report, I always get that feeling that it's not appreciated because it's being written by a ZDP holder, a Zimbabwean who is no longer wanted in South Africa. I have to leave. My stay in South Africa in the middle of all this is not certain. I literally have no future. Like right now, my visa expires in June, and I don't know what is going to happen afterwards. What people don't understand is when you have a visa in a foreign country, your whole life, everything, like literally your work, your personal life, banking, every single move is standard, like it's literally attached to your visa. So many people that I've spoken to regarding my situation will tell me that you can literally just choose to take my best and leave and go to another country. It's okay, I understand that. I mean, I'm a PhD holder. The chances of me being better compared to a ZDP holder who doesn't have the qualifications. But the situation is when you have a visa that is literally that like all the doors are closing, yet I have to apply from here South Africa to go to wherever that we have to. Like my point being, everything is just affected when things are like this. And hearing the measures that are being taken and all these efforts that are being put in order to sort of like speak to the government when it comes to the ZDP visa. Sort of like a relief. I almost cried when I had the advocate speaking because I was like, okay, like I thought nothing is happening. Of course, the thing rumors that this is going to put, but hearing it directly from the people that are actually doing it is amazing. And I just want to say thank you so much. And for you to actually say that it's promising and something is going to happen, it's likely to happen, it's really big to me, and I truly appreciate that. So, I mean, before I finish, my journey to South Africa is well documented. It's actually online. My name is Juliet, for those that want to check. I ran away from the child marriage and all that stuff. And when I came to South Africa gave me a future, gave me a life that I never thought I would actually get. I had to go back to high school in my early 20s and all that stuff, but I still managed to get a PhD. And South Africa means so much to me. It's actually my home, if I am to be honest. And after giving me so much, which I appreciate, which I'm so thankful to be expected to just pick my bags and leave when I still feel like I want to be here and I also belong here. It's just like it's just really Thank you so much. Thank you.
name is Lawrence. I'm a teacher, teaching science. And I've been here since 2008. So that's about 15 years. And I came down with my family because of the situation in Zimbabwe. Being a teacher in a rural area was difficult. I would say dangerous, actually, because teachers were considered to be supporting the opposition party. And so I ran away from that, came down to South Africa. My youngest child was 3 years old. And when we came down, my other son was in grade 2, started an education here. I couldn't immediately go into teaching. I had to do several other jobs before I could become a teacher. So 2 years later, I became a teacher. So in 2010, that's when I started teaching. I'm still at the same school that I was teaching then, in fact, where I started. And so one of the things that happened in 2010 was that we got the ZEP. I was on an asylum seekers permit. And when they offered the DZP then, I took that as an opportunity because that could allow me to go into teaching. That could allow me to earn a salary, to earn, to give my children a life. And I've been able to do that. My son is now second year university. My daughter is now in matric. Throughout the years, throughout these 12 years, this is the 13th year in teaching, I think I've contributed quite a lot to the South African society. Knowing the students who have graduated from university that have passed through my hands. I've been a loyal taxpayer in the South African context, and I've contributed quite a lot to the South African community. But more so, I'm looking at myself. I've been here for the past 15 years. This is where my life is centered. This is where my life is. I've been in Cape Town the whole time. I've built my life around Cape Town. Going back to Zimbabwe at this time would be, I don't know where I would start. I don't have any hopes of building anything back at home anymore. Added to that, my 2 children don't know much about Zimbabwe. They've literally gone through their education in South Africa. My youngest daughter is in grade 12, matric this year. And in June, the parent is going to air. What will happen to her? How is she going to finish her school? I'm looking at it and I'm thinking I'm failing to provide for my child. And that's what's happening in South Africa. This is what they are doing to us. Where does my child go? Am I going to terminate her education and she doesn't have a future anymore? My son is second year university. What is he going to do? Where is he going? Unfortunate. Can't say much, but this is how emotionally we are affected. It's not just my children's education, it's the emotional stress that you have to go through. It's me looking at my children and thinking, what are they going to do? Where are they going? What's going to happen to them? It's a very difficult situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lauren. Is there anyone else that would like to share? Can I have over here first?
Hello everyone, my name is Ellen. I'm with the Scalability Center of Cape Town and I head up integrated scalability. So I'm going to share from clients' perspectives, the clients. So what Lawrence has just said is an example of the many requests and questions that clients have for us. Because what we initially did as Calabrian Exchange of Information, we sent out a survey to ask which of our clients are on ZDPs and how a determination was going to affect them. So we had a lot of responses, but we got into a situation where clients were asking us what's next. So we informed them that we are collecting information to build a case on ZDP termination. So like Lawrence has explained and many others, they're asking us, what happens after June? My child is in school. And with that, the stress and the emotions that we get from clients who say, we don't qualify for any other visa, and the conditions for applying for any other mainstream visas are, the bar is high. We cannot match that. It's stressful and it's emotional for clients, and for our part, we try our best to tell clients that we're doing the best that we can, given the circumstances. We assisting counsel, we are giving information as requested and doing research to assist on the case. But I also have a question for Advocate Simmons. What happens after the 30th of June? In the unfortunate event that the court goes against the efforts to try to get the ZDP to get removed.
Can we have another voice at the back, please? And then maybe we can move after that, keep Advocate Simmons an opportunity to respond.
Okay, everyone. My name is Florence Mosham, and I came here in South Africa in 2009. Because when I was in Zimbabwe, my father, who was a breadwinner, lost his job through the strike that was going on in Zimbabwe. So the only option that I could make was to come here in Zimbabwe, so that I can also provide for my children. So as I first applied for ASILE, then I got rejected. I was given a rejection for 1 month, and then I school back home. So I tried to appeal. Then that's when the safety, the Zimbabwe inspection was introduced. So I got the option to get a permit, so that I can be I can stay in South Africa legally and work. Because when you have got an ASILE, you are bounded to some other things, like you can't even a bank account. Even right now, you can't get a work with an ASILE. So that's why I vowed for a permit, so that I can stay legally and I can even move in and out of South Africa freely. Because I also have got a family in Zimbabwe. My parents are there in Zimbabwe. Right now, the situation in Zimbabwe is deteriorating each day. There is no education. The health system is very bad in Zimbabwe. There's a time when my father fell sick and unfortunately he lost his child.
Thank you very much for sharing. We also have, as I mentioned, we have members here of civil society members that initiated this case besides Pellegrini. We also have COMSA and we have the Helen Suzman Foundation. So we also have here with us Advocate Chitonda, who will be the speaker. I put him on the panel. He's not on the program, but I just asked him yesterday, and he gladly agreed to be one of our speakers this afternoon. So can I ask Helen Suzman Foundation and COMSA if there's anything that you would like to add?
Well, just to say that the stories that we've heard today are incredibly moving, and they bring home just exactly the sort of suffering that this decision has clearly caused. And our phones at the Helen Suzman Foundation
been bringing with these sorts of stories for quite some time now. And I guess from our perspective, sort of behind the scenes of the legal work is that seeing just the sort of the ripple effect of the decision in the lives of people has been quite difficult. Formulating solutions has been quite difficult as well. So some will phone with the problem saying their driver's license can't be renewed. They're going to lose their job as a driver because an official, the licensing department, has made a decision that because the ZEP is coming to them, they can't do it. We've had teachers who have struggled to get registered with SACE. That's been solved, it seems, from the limited amount of people that we've seen.
Yeah.
Bank accounts are being closed. People are being refused UIF payments. The ripple effect has been incredible, and there's a sense of helplessness, I think, that you get when you speak to someone in the position of a migrant. That is just it is difficult, and something that I think finding workable solutions to is quite hard. And I suppose so it's difficult to. I mean, that's why I think these sorts of legal challenges, I hope, bring some sort of relief. And I suppose that's really the perspective that I wanted to share. That we've seen some of this happen from our desk, and it is it brings home what a momentously disastrous decision this has been.
Thank you very much for that, Chris. Just so I'll get around the room. I'm not talking about a small number of people here, close to 250,000 lives that are going to be uprooted because of this. So the question we want to answer at the end of the day, was it a good decision to introduce this kind of temporary protection regime? Just keep that at the back of your mind, and this is what we're going to be discussing this afternoon. Was that the best way to help Zimbabweans? Was it a good idea to renew and renew and renew again the same term? So that's for this afternoon. But can I hand over to you now?
Well, thank you very much, Fatima. I'm Chief Professor Mchumura. I'm the Executive Director at the Consortium for Refugees and Migrants in South Africa. Maybe I've heard quite a number of speakers saying COMSA, that is honest abbreviation of our organization. I'm happy as the leader of the organization of the consortium, having this kind of platform, being engaged on issues that are affecting our lives and our target beneficiaries on a daily basis, because the story we are hearing today, they are quite moving and very sad, because those are the reality that some families have to face every day they wake up. They have to start thinking, what is the news that will come from the cabinet? What is the news that will come from the minister? And they ask us as the representative to say, where to from here? And we are definitely relying behind the litigation cases. Hence, COMSA agreed to join forces with the Helen Sukman Foundation to litigate on this matter, because more than 180,000, as it has been indicated, of ZEP holders, because it has gradually moved from 3 stages. Some of us, we were there when the dispensation was introduced from the beginning, and it has a very good objective at the beginning, but there were some challenges that we engaged on, because there were no regulation or some sort of condition in terms of how it will be renewed, and those were introduced, and then it was renewed for the second time and third time, and now we hear this news, and can you imagine, every after 3 years you need to wait and hear your fate. Can you imagine? Every after 3 years you need to wait and hear your fate, whether you will still be okay, whether you will still be documented, whether you will be forcefully removed, whether you will be arrested and detained. You don't know what you're going to be facing. So hence we join forces to see that what our legal representative has indicated, that the rights of the children and dependents on those holders are set. And remember, the Department of Home Affairs, they've been crying every day that they've got quite a number of undocumented migrants in the country. And you are ending a process that documented migrants in the country. What is the discussion based on? And we should not forget that we still have the Lesotho exemption permit that is coming to an end December. And there are allegations that it will not be renewed as well. And we're talking about over 90,000 Lesotho nationals that has been documented under the Lesotho exemption permit. And if you bring 180,000, like you indicated, Fatima, over a quarter, and then you bring the 90,000 again, excluding the dependents that are not accounted, but they are there of the Lesotho exemption permit, we're talking about quite a number of huge migrants that will be undocumented come the end of 2023. So for us, it is to say to the beneficiaries of ZEP, as the consortium, we will do as much as we can to support whatever advocacy, whatever strategies, whatever mechanism that will be employed to make sure that people remain regularized, children's rights remain protected, and that people remain with their some sort of livelihoods. Because if you hear his story, it is quite saddening to know that all of a sudden your livelihood will be stopped, and the people who are looking upon you will not have anywhere to look because you won't be having that livelihood. And education you stop. Imagine it's going to be ending in June. You are doing your final year at varsity. Now you are told stop. You have been graduated. You can imagine the barriers, the challenges, the hardship, and quite a number of consequences that will follow in. And is that we as South African, is that something that we need to celebrate? Of course, we need to be supporting whatever strategies and advocacy work that is being done around these issues, because we might be looking at issues of scarce resources and other arguments that are being sent out by the anti-migrant movement. But when you look at the reality, you will find out that it also affects you very deeply, and it affects you on a daily basis because it's not a one-man show. It's everybody in this country, because people that we're talking about who have been regularized within this period, they are in South Africa. They are living with us, and they are integrated in our communities. They are our teachers, they are our nurses, they are our social workers. They are providing such critical services as James has indicated. Where do we go from here? Seeking those services, the trauma counselors that we receive, and refugee services that our refugees get from the very same people. So as COMSA, like I indicated, we will definitely continue. Hence, when our legal representative, whenever they call, whether it's at night, whether it's any hours of the morning, they know that even if I'm traveling, I pause whatever I'm doing to make sure that those affidavits are commissioned and those affidavits are sent. Because the delay, the department might get an opportunity to exploit that. And so hence I'm always there to support whatever advocacy strategies. I do participate in quite a number of community engagement and also WhatsApp groups and other advocacy groups that have been set and platforms to make sure that we provide that support, and then we also get them involved in whatever cause that is being carried out. So by those few words, thank you, Fatima, for organizing this kind of platform.
Thank you very much for that. No, the world is watching. Right? And when I say the world is watching, I want to spell it out for you, right? We have the same situation in Turkey, where the Turkish government is also offering to provide temporary protection to Syrians, right? And it's again the same thing. What happens at the end of that period? Are they going to renew this? We have 250,000 Zimbabweans in South Africa living under that precarious situation. We probably have 1 million Syrians, or close to 1 million Syrians. It's 4 million. Imagine that 4 million, 4 million Syrians living under the same conditions in Turkey. And I do believe the European Union has also opted to provide Ukrainians with temporary protection and not refugee status. So, no pressure, David. No pressure whatsoever. But my colleagues that are here on the ASILE project, they are here to understand what it is that this is all about, right? What can we do? Could South Africa have done things differently, right? So that is things this is the discussion that will be ongoing in the afternoon. Is it truly a complementary pathway? This is the overall, the answer that we are trying to get from this, because we've heard from Lawrence, we've heard from others in the room here that the impact on a person's life and from any human rights perspective, nobody should be living that kind of precarious life. Nobody, right? And it is our job as people in this room to make sure that that doesn't happen, whether you are a refugee or not, right? We know that some people do not meet. Some of the migrants do not meet the refugee definition. But even as the migrant, you have the right to dignity, right? So let's bear that in mind. We've got 10 more minutes and I'm opening up to anybody. Anybody?
Good afternoon. My name is Tolu George and I coordinate a group called Tusimami Wanawake. It's a women's migrants group. It was founded by Africa Unite. It's one of the movement organizations of Africa Unite. And I wasn't informed about this meeting. I came here because I'm very interested in this, because I deal with women. Thank you. So I gate crashed. I got free lunch. Well, one of the things I want to point out is I'm not Zimbabwean, and but I've engaged with quite a couple of Zimbabwean people on this particular issue, the cancellation of the ZEP. And I remember sometime last year, I was at a talk which was organized by Africa Unite, in which they were talking about canceling canceling the teaching of physics and mathematics in South African curriculum in high schools, because they found out that children were failing those courses. And at that event, there was a teacher there, and there were about 4 principals at that event. And the 4 principals all spoke unanimously about the contributions of the Zimbabwean teachers to the education in their school, and how some schools had gone from about a 30% pass rate to a 90% pass rate. And maybe there was a particular principal who said in his school, he was relying on exactly 4 Zimbabwean teachers who held the entire school together. And they were such gifted teachers. There was a teacher there who spoke about how he has been able to make science and mathematics and accounting come alive. And incidentally, at that event, there was also a gentleman from Parliament. I can't remember exactly what his portfolio was in Parliament, but I think it had something to do with education. And then I asked a question. I said, here you are moaning about how the science, and you don't have enough science teachers, you don't have enough science tutors, you don't have enough South African math tutors, and so on and so forth. Yet you are poised to kick out thousands of gifted teachers who have superb training. They are good at what they do, and they are contributing to the education system in your society. And he was a bit taken aback by that question. So he gave a very political answer, and he said something to the effect of, when civil society makes enough noise, then government will take notice.
Thank you, Fatima. My name is Anthony Tate.
Oh,
he does.
I'll
I'll give him a chance. I'll then talk. But
Okay.
Let me go in.
Just a brief mention of the situation in Denmark, small country of Northern Europe from which I happen to come. We have a similar situation at a much smaller scale. I'm not going into details here, but just want to mention what it is about a portion of the Syrian refugees who have been granted a special so-called temporary protection status, which in its wisdom, the government has now decided to withdraw or not to extend for these, at least a portion of these Syrian refugees. And they haven't been as long in Denmark as many of you have been in South Africa. The human tragedy is at smaller scale in perhaps all dimensions, but I can recognize some of what you just told about the ripple effect. Just one legal issue that I'm sure you have thought of it already, but it might be relevant to pursue, I think. Even the Danish government has realized that apart from need of protection, the integration into society is also a potential barrier to ending protection or ending residence. In Denmark, it is Article 8 of the European Human Rights Convention that is sort of being considered the limit on the international law. And of course, that's irrelevant to you. But the similar provision in the ICCPR would be Article 17, protecting against arbitrary or unlawful interference with privacy and family. And I'm just wondering whether they could be have been invoked or could be relevant at least to some extent. Of course, the case law from the Human Rights Committee is much lesser than from the European Human Rights Court. But it is very clear from the European Court of Human Rights that private life, which translates into privacy, I guess, as the two provisions are often considered equivalent. That part of the article protects against uprooting people who have sort of become more or less solidly integrated into society, because it's a matter of their personal integrity, which also could amount to what we refer to as dignity. But just an idea.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to ask you to be the last speaker, and I'm going to hand over to Advocate Simmons here, because I believe they got two direct questions, and also one.
Thank you very much. My name is Anthony. I almost took this opportunity to speak first. So I'm in Zimbabwe and I've been here for 20 years now. Actually well connected with communities. I also work in the communities, and I've received so many issues around the issues that have been raised here, like banks being closed. I'm particularly more concerned about kids that need to register in schools now with their parents' documents expiring in June. There is this big issue where schools are not accepting registration of students whose parents do not have valid permits. It's a big issue that I don't know how it can be solved. The other issue also is that we know the Zimbabweans have been here on ZDP first, ZDP, ZSP for 15 years. Some been intermarried. And when suddenly a father or a mother is asked to leave because their documents are going to expire, what is going to happen to children that they may have had locally? It's an issue that perhaps we need to look into. There are many Zimbabweans who have married South Africans, and there are many South Africans perhaps who have also married Zimbabweans. And this is an issue that is going to affect many families. It's going to disintegrate families. And I think it's a valid argument, and we need to look into it. Thank you.
Thank you. My short answer to that is those families that have intermarried, they are safe. Okay? Come to the lawyers, we will explain to you how we say, why we say they are safe. They have the right to family. So they are safe. And the children of to get them into schools of undocumented parents, if they are under the age of 15, that problem is solved too. Come to us on an individual basis. We will help you. It is 1 minute, but David, you can do it, right?
Thank you. I think I had two questions, one from Ellen and one from the professor who's not here, so we can start together. What happens if we fail? As I said, the court hearing is currently mid-April, at the end of June, the expiry session. Assuming that the judges take about 2 weeks or so, and they often take longer, but given the circumstances, I think that's a reasonable estimate. That gives us a month. I would think, subject to what the judgment says, and subject, of course, to the instructions from COMSA and the stance of HSF and everything else, we might contemplate an urgent appeal to the Constitutional Court. So there'll be one more round of it. It may also happen if we win. The other side might say, oh, but of course they have the power to extend the ZEP, so they might not need to act so urgently. The Court doesn't like handling urgent matters. It doesn't like handling matters which seek interim protection, but they have and will hopefully do so. Given the high profile of this nature, again, I think it's something I would recommend trying. If we fail there, bottom line is the ZEP is over. And those people who hold ZEP will have to find the alternative solutions, which are, unfortunately, which are not very good with the assignment system, or the immigration options, or just living here illegally, going back home. And I have a lot of reservations about those, but I have 1 minute, so I'll not discussing those. The professor isn't here, but briefly, we do rely on international law, the ICCPR on our heads. We don't rely on it over much for two reasons. One is that South African constitutional law gives us a great deal of the tools of which we need, more directly, more explicitly. So we're very fortunate in that regard. The second reason is that when litigating these things, we must be careful of not coming across as unduly academic or idealistic. So actually Denmark is an example. Saying, well, Denmark did this, opens you up to being told, well, Denmark is a very different country. And sometimes here in South Africa, we have to make more difficult choices, and this is what's best for South Africa. And with certain judges and certain lawyers, that is a compelling argument. So when we address the courts on these issues, we do touch on those principles. We also have to address the more practical aspects. Why can we do this? Why is it cheaper? Why is it actually better for South Africa to have these people here? And then we get into the stories you've heard today, the teachers that keep the schools together, the doctors and so on, and all of that. So he's not here, but it's a helpful comment. Thank you. But it is as I said, it's a secondary strategic.
Thank you. For your great audience and also for your fantastic beyond the session went beyond, far beyond my expectations. Thank you very much for everybody involved. Let's have a lovely lunch now, but remember the voucher.
Sorry, has everyone got, I tried to get everyone when I went around.
Did go around.
No, I'm giving to you.
And you lead the way. My colleague now will lead us to the restaurant. I'm a bit more.
I don't know whether the internet feedback is so much from the media. Yeah.
It's a shame. Even online at the end, so that we can. Yes. We also would like to be. Everything was quite good, and I really don't think what's up today on the page. Only good So glad to meet.
But, yeah, like, everybody's here, you know. And, yeah, for the I can Oh, yeah, yeah.
Do you have a card?
I don't have a card yet.
Okay, write your number.
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you my email address. My email you.
It's very anti-migrant, and I can sort of.
Okay.
The agenda, you know,
Thank you very much. Because there are women, many women who are struggling. I'm doing, in fact, that's why I'm here, because I'm finishing my research. Children having to go back. They don't know what, I like what you said about it, because I was going to ask about the salad and something like that. The lady I asked them about how much. But I'll do it.
Because you know, like, I mean, yeah, they've always been the definition of trying to do like documentation, you know, they just, it's the intent. That's the extent, that's enjoying the protection management. Protection of children, protection of any child. Yeah. No specific. No specific. Yeah, the document is why don't they have these things? Look, you know, how they evolve, this is how to make you compromise. Yeah. So there is, we have colleagues that they get optimistic, there's signs of How come you feel this is the one get rid of the fight?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've ticked that box or something, and then take them aside. You know, I think that like these ridiculous things. Like they didn't. Like they decided we're gonna stop protesting all asylum refugee unwestern.
I mean,
There's overnight kind of.
I.
Another policy.
It's all right. It wasn't easy. You understood me about my English police.
Kind of.
That's going on for the next. That's